This one, a long time have I watched. All his life as he looked away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing.
This is Lord Alfred Hayes. Microphone check 1, 2. What is this? It's Vintage Update. About to get down to business.
Does it feel good to have the podcast back? Does it feel kind of like when you're in college and you have to share that sort of crappy apartment with your roommate and he's always got his girlfriend over and then they go away for the weekend? Does it kind of feel like that right now a little bit?
Maybe a little bit, but I love having Sean over. I think we need him more often. But yeah, it was a little cramped, and I kind of like it when it's just you and me rapping and having fun and just kind of doing our thing. It's a little more free flow when you don't have a third party there. But I won't say anything against Sean. Love the man. Love the man.
Where would you like to start regarding this episode? I like to sort of lean on you for this show, Vintage Update. This is where the people get to hear Shotgun Shan shooting from the hip.
Here's where I'd start. I think we've got a lot of news to cover, just short news items. I don't think we need to dwell on them, but it seems like so much has happened since our last show. There's several significant ones, but the ones that stick out in my mind right now, first of all, is the retirement of AJ Lee. I haven't spoken to you since AJ very quietly retired. First of all, what do you think was the official reason for her leaving? And then there were a lot of possibilities there. And secondly, what do you think the outcome's going to be?
It was just too uncomfortable. I mean, we haven't even really talked a lot about the lawsuit. And the reason is because there's not a lot to say right now about the CM Punk lawsuit. This is not going to be a story that we talk about one week and it's wrapped up. You get the follow-up the next week and then it goes away. This is going to be around for a long time. I mean, could be years.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
So that's why I've not been exhausting that topic right now. But as far as the AJ thing, I think it's one of those things where you're suing my husband and yet you're for millions of dollars, right? At the same time, you're going to be the guy I go to for medical attention.
Yeah, it would have to be such a weird, the whole thing. I'm surprised she lasted as long as she did. The whole thing must have been quite awkward and strange. And again, I certainly hope that Punk was upfront about it. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that needs to lie to get his point across. So I would hope, and he also seems like a relatively smart guy, so I don't know that he would make those kind of libelous comments unless he had at least something to back it up. Some of this stuff is not going to be able to substantiate if it just took place in back rooms. Obviously, prescriptions and stuff like that will be, but, people saying this, people saying that, people not doing this or that may be a little harder to prove. I would hope and I would believe that he would have himself covered on this, but I guess we'll see.
The thing, too, with AJ is that it's not just the doctor that's suing. I mean, it is just the doctor suing him, but WWE's made it very publicly clear whose side they're on. And I mean, it's kind of like, we're both married. You sue my wife, you're suing me, So it's kind of like you're working for a company that's suing you for millions of dollars. I mean, it must have been awkward.
It really is that AJ really has kind of done everything that she can do. There really isn't anyone that can hang with her except Paige, and it's been done to death. And, I kind of respect the people who kind of get to the top and then go, I've kind of done what I can do. I don't enjoy this anymore and I'm going to move on. But I don't know. I mean, I'm going to miss her. Let's put it that way.
Have you been shocked by the way that it's been presented on television?
No, I think that she's someone that is going to be missed, and I think maybe they didn't want to write her off like that. I don't know. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes? Maybe they do feel bad that she's decided to retire in the midst of all this. Who knows? Although I tend to doubt it. But I wouldn't say that I was shocked. I was pleasantly surprised that there wasn't an attempt to bury her.
You must admit this is not the usual practice.
No, it's not.
With anyone that just abruptly leaves.
Yeah.
They just seem to be paying her a lot of attention, and especially when you consider all of the shit going on. Listen, anybody that's trying to say this has nothing to do with the CM Punk situation is fooling themselves, and I think we all know that. I didn't expect her here a year ago. It's just too damn awkward. It's just too damn weird. And this is a girl that loves professional wrestling, or did love professional wrestling. And for God's sake, she got that tattoo that we had that argument about. You don't do that if you don't love this shit. And if you don't take it seriously, and if you don't take the WWE seriously, even their butterfly belt. Unless it's one of those situations, and this happens in life, where you chase something and you think it's the dream and you think it's what you want to do, and then you actually get it and you realize it's not what you want at all. So.
Well, there's also the point that professional wrestling may still be her dream, but WWE may not be her dream anymore. So, let's, I guess we'll probably won't really know unless she comes out and really gives a big statement at some point.
just briefly, the Steve Austin situation. They've gone after our friends at Pro Wrestling Tees. WWE sent them a cease and desist order. I just don't see him as a businessman going out and cutting some kind of side deal and thinking that nothing would ever come of it. So this to me seems like a little bit of a stretch. Do you care to comment on this?
Well, I was shocked as soon as I read it. I mean, we heard all this talk about there being tension between Austin and WWE, and which he sort of played down. And I can't help but wonder if maybe this is involved to some extent. Yeah, you're right. I don't think Steve would make a mistake like that. Not only would Steve not make a mistake like that, but I'm assuming he has a whole team working with him, and I don't think anyone there would make that mistake either.
Is this just WWE being dickheads again? Is this a lot like what the CM Punk thing is probably set out to do as well, where it's not about actually having this thing go to court. It's just about being a pain in the ass. It's just about draining your resources. It's just about saying, fuck you, we're in control. Like, I mean, it just seems to me the whole Austin thing, anything I've heard about it, just makes me shake my head.
I think you're right. I don't think that there's anything really substantial that will come out of it. Possibly there may be nothing substantial come out of the Punk situation either. But again, it's just kind of, Vince standing there strutting and flexing his ass and doing all this stuff and going, look at who I am still. I would suspect that's it. I don't think you go after and try and further mess up your relationship with Steve Austin, who you can always bring back to get a pop out of the crowd and to benefit your company. I don't think you do that.
Your network, again, yeah, it just seems to me like WWE has been known to do this before, where it's not about, they know that they have nothing.
The next thing I think we should really bring up, and it right now isn't really big news, but could turn into big news potentially very quickly, is the news now about Daniel Bryan being pulled from the current tour due to injury. The fact that the stories say that Bryan's injuries have not healed as well, that he's in quite a lot of trouble physically. And this, as a Daniel Bryan fan and as a fan of wrestling in general, I'm very upset to hear this, and I certainly wish him well. I hope it's not as bad as it sounds. The guy's style is so intense, and he didn't dial it back when he came back and went right into a ladder match at WrestleMania and put on a hell of a show. But, there's part of me right now that has that terrible sinking feeling that this Daniel Bryan story that we've been wanting to see turn out so well and has had so many hiccups and stops, that this could be a very, very serious issue for him. What do you think?
You can't help but respect his guts. You can't help but respect that he only has one speed on the dial. But at the same time, you can't help but shake your head a little bit and say, you know what, on a 3-minute match with Luke Harper, you don't need to take the dragon suplex on your head. There's certain things that he has done that have made me a little bit turned off as a fan.
I think he was trying to prove something, and I don't know that it's worked out for him. I guess my feeling right now is that if it is serious, that if it is as serious as it sounds, then my hope is that he will go away for a substantial amount of time, not just, the bare minimum to get back into the ring, but disappear for a while, and really heal and come back. We know that it can happen. I mean, Shawn Michaels' career was over and he disappeared, but he took the time until he was completely healed and came back and had, I think, the best matches of his life upon his comeback. So if it's something like that for Bryan, if it really turns out that he has to go away, I hope that he goes away and stays away until he's ready to come back strong.
And again, this is all speculation right now, folks. We don't know.
Yeah, he may have taken a bump somewhere that was serious enough that, on its own, that they felt they needed to pull him out. But I guess we'll wait and see how that develops. But as a Daniel Bryan fan, I am concerned. Let's just put it that way.
Obviously leading into the build for WrestleMania, I was not thrilled with that angle and thrilled with the way they set it up. But the whole Cena and Bryan as secondary champions thing to me has been a complete success. I know it hasn't been very long, but I've been really enjoying it. And again, let's just hope this continues. Let's hope that he's not gone or out or worse. What have you thought? Do you want to talk a little bit about the WWE product and how things have shaped up over the last 2 weeks since WrestleMania?
Well, I think it's time to do our WrestleMania fallout and sort of see what the state of the union is following the weeks following WrestleMania. And before we do, I have something really important I need to bring up here and to introduce this segment. And I would not normally do this. I'm generally a very positive person. Now, before I get into the whole WrestleMania fallout and my feeling on that, here's the airing of grievances I have to bring up. And these are not grievances against you, my friend. I do, however, have to involve you in it to lead into this segment. On the last show, we talked about one of the things that we disagreed on was the whole Rock, Ronda Rousey, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon segment. I said it was kind of drawn out. I said I didn't think that you needed to bump that much of the show, and you said to me, come on, it was only 10 minutes. What's the big deal? I went back and watched that show again, and it was 25 minutes, dude. It was 25 minutes. 1/8 of that pay-per-view was used up in a segment with, and I have no problem with Rousey being in it because she was awesome. And I have no problem with Rock being in it because he needed to make his little appearance. But a 25-minute segment recycling Triple H, who'd already done a number on Sting earlier in the night with his ludicrous entrance, overshadowing the whole Sting match, that really bugged me. And at the time, I wasn't quite sure why it bugged me so much, other than the fact that it was drawn out. But I'll tell you what my feeling was after going back and watching it again and trying to examine why I was so annoyed by it, is it's sort of indicative of the WWE mentality that's hurt the product so much in the past while, is their refusal to actually live in the moment of what's going on. It was all fine and good to bring in these guest stars to set up something potential down the road, but it was done at the expense of the current product. It was done at the expense of what was happening in that exact moment. This was WrestleMania. It wasn't next WrestleMania. We were in the moment. It was WrestleMania right now. You want to set something out for the next year, that's awesome. But I think taking up that much time really kind of said, we're living in the future. We're not really sticking out what we're doing right now. It's something that you've seen when it leads into the issues we've had in the past with guys like Daniel Bryan, where they would turn their nose up at them and not capitalize on what they had because it wasn't the future. He's not the future. We don't need the future. We need the future. And things like that. And I think it really stuck with me. And something that going forward, I've been watching really closely now to see how often they're capitalizing on what they have in the current product and not always looking to the future and going, well, we got to make Roman Reigns champion, even if he's not ready, because by God, we got to be ready for next year. Well, that's basically my feeling going into that. And I didn't mean to drag you into that. Of course, it was a great segment. It might have felt like 10 minutes, but by God, I knew in my internal clock I was right.
Listen, now let me just defend myself here before you go any further by saying that you're absolutely right. The very next day, I saw the exact same report saying it was 24 minutes. The roster was pissed. And then here's the other thing is that here I am thinking that it's already on paper. They've already signed the contract with Rousey. It's locked in. That tag match is happening next year, and this is basically the preview for that. And that was why I said it's okay, because there's bigger business to do, and the fact that they didn't have anything on paper, the fact that they don't even know if it's going to be happening next year, the fact that it might actually just be 2 singles matches, I 100% understand where you're coming from. And regarding the Sting and Triple H match, I watched it again. I think the crowd just kind of swayed me the first time I watched it because the crowd was enjoying it so much. And I'm the kind of guy where I sometimes feel like just let the crowd decide whether it was a good match. Let the box office decide whether it was a good match. But you're right. It was bullshit. It was smoke and mirrors, all the wrong kind of smoke and mirrors. Logic was completely thrown out, and it was like some weird house show program.
I didn't think I was going to feel so vindicated. This is awesome.
No, you were 100% right. It was 24 minutes. That's too long. Triple H and Stephanie could have been cut down to like 2 or 3 minutes. Really, it could have.
It could have been cut down to 12 seconds. I would have been happy.
But the young talent's never going to be put ahead of this dog and pony show.
But look at as the case in point we were trying to talk about here is what's happened after Mania, and I think that there's been some key players. I mean, obviously with Brock Lesnar being at, I would say maybe the height of his popularity in WWE. Is it fair to say that?
Yeah, I think so.
And then gone.
You basically just have to pay attention to the shows when Brock's there.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like. And to me, Seth Rollins, you know how much I think of him as an in-ring performer. Very dynamic and very versatile as an in-ring performer.
Yeah.
Once it comes time for him to be carrying the show as the top personality, no.
Well, and it's also the character they've built for him really has to rely on a lot of outside people, and so it's never really focused on Seth that much. I think if it was done a little bit differently, I think Seth would have fared all right. If he was a different kind of character, but he is part of an ensemble piece, and the rest of the ensemble I don't think is really all that strong. So, but the flip side of what we've been saying about Brock now is we had Roman, who was really cold going in. I don't think he's any hotter coming out. I was certainly hoping that the crowd would ease up on him a little bit, because as we said before, I got nothing against Roman. I think he should be upper middle card and even floating around the top so that he can earn his chops. But what did you feel about the way that Roman's been received, and what do you feel? How do you feel his performances have been? I mean, he's now in a feud with the Big Show.
He's definitely the most polarizing guy in that company right now, even more than Cena, I would say.
Yes,
because
it caught a little bit of a break with the U.S. title, hasn't he?
Because it's been something different. All they want is something different. If he started doing anything different, or anytime he starts doing anything different, they get into it. And this U.S. title thing is not a threat to the top mix. It's not like, Cena's being pushed down your throat as top guy anymore. It's been perfect. But with Roman Reigns, like you say, he's still getting some of those really passionately negative reactions in a lot of the buildings, but then he'll just all of a sudden show up one show and they'll cheer him and he'll be the top baby. Like you say, though, they're doing him zero favors putting him in there with the Big Show again. The crowd was chanting, please retire to Big Show this week, Shan.
Poor Big Show. I mean, I feel sorry for him, too. He's doing the best he can for a big fella. He's a big fella. He's a big old fella. Leave him be. But, yeah, I know what you mean. I'm not sure if them putting him with Big Show now is just a sign that they've kind of given up. Or if they really feel that this is a suitable training ground for Roman. I would tend to think it's not. I mean, let's get him away from Show and get him in with somebody who can really teach him something. Not that Big Show's not good for what he is, but he's learned what he can learn from Big Show at this point. But put him in there with some really good guys that can teach him some stuff, and I think Roman will be a big deal.
What did you think of Neville's in-ring performances so far, and what do you think of the presentation and the way that they are building him so far?
First up, I was relieved that he's not wearing a Mighty Mouse outfit.
So anything's good then.
Anything's good. But I mean, it's the beauty of Neville is that he's come across incredibly. His performances have been amazing, and yet the stuff he's actually showing doesn't even scratch the surface of what he can do. So he's kind of blowing people away with his performances, which I think have been strong. His match with Ziggler this past week was awesome. So he's one of those guys with sort of untapped potential, and it's good to see they're letting him do it. I was a bit concerned they wouldn't, and they just throw him in and have him get thrown around, have him be a Bo Dallas, But they've decided, at least to let him showcase some of what he can do. And as I said, what he's shown so far, as breathtaking as it is only a fraction of what he can do.
I like the idea of a guy coming in and racking up a bunch of victories before you start pinning his shoulders to the mat, regardless of who it is pinning his shoulders to the mat. I don't know. I just feel like it kind of slots a guy as mid-card right away, but that's just me.
Well, you know what I say? I say a little bit of both isn't going to hurt. He's come in there against top guys and put on great performances that people have raved over, and yes, lost. But now is the time, I would say, to kind of mix that with having beating some mid-card guys and looking good in that way. I don't think there's any damage has been done to him at this point because he's looked spectacular. And as you said, he's been against guys that are in the very top, the top group there. But let's hope that going forward they're going to give him some wins and build him on his own.
They definitely haven't buried him in those matches. Again, I'm kind of old school. I like the fact that a guy doesn't lose for the first few weeks being on, at least the first few months even, being on TV. Again, the John Cena stuff we said has been quite good. I like that he just goes in there and has random matches, with anyone from a Stardust to a Dean Ambrose. It could be babyface or heel. Anyone could come out and, accept the open challenge. It's
given it a really nice feel, hasn't it? A really special feel. A kind of a different, we haven't seen enough of that lately, with the guy who's I'm just the fighting champion and I'm going to take on anybody. I like it. I think it's the right place for Cena. I think it's the right place for Bryan. Let's hope he's able to continue defending that belt and doesn't end up getting stripped. But I think that what they're doing with it has really, strengthened the product. I'm happy in that way because they've made it now a three-pronged product. You've got your world title with a sneaky kind of heel champion, and you got two valiant, strong baby faces in the other championships, and it kind of evens things out a little bit. I can see, where they could start flipping around some of these titles and putting different guys in the actual main event of a pay-per-view and having it not always have to be the world champion. So
it's amazing that in 3 weeks, especially the U.S. title, but both of the IC and the U.S. title, it's amazing how in 3 weeks they already seem so much more valuable.
Oh, yeah. I've forgotten how they just flip-flop from one guy to the next and we're always a tepid kind of non-issue.
It really goes to show that it is the guy that holds it.
And it's not just the guy that holds it. It's the guy that holds it and how behind that guy the company is. And they've obviously been very smart and very confident in pushing these guys. So let's hope that regardless of what happens with the IC title, let's hope that attitude continues.
Randy and Seth, there's nothing wrong with that match. I think it'll be a really good match. But that's sort of the difference between pay-per-view and the network. On network, you can just give that as a main event. and people won't be upset because it's $10 a month and you get all this other stuff. But when it comes down to pay-per-view,
That's good. The network has kind of changed the landscape of their monthly shows now. Because as you're right. With more and more people signing up for the network and more the focus being on, it's only $10 a month, but you need to make them kind of special and build around them. So, I know that they have to finish up this Randy and Seth thing, but again, with Seth being the kind of champion he is, I'm not sure what kind of main event matches he's going to have. Let's see what they can pull out. I mean, I have a lot of faith in Seth, and obviously Randy's a great worker, so let's see what they can pull out. But yeah, I hope that it's wrapped up after this one. I hope it doesn't go to another match.
Harper versus Ambrose could be interesting.
Woo! That's a great meshing of styles.
CZW rules. TNA Wrestling in some severe trouble right now. Taz has parted ways with TNA. The real story being that Taz is way behind on pay. And this week put his foot down and said, I'm not flying into Nashville to do the post-production. I'm not flying into Nashville to do the voiceovers. And basically just said, I'm done. So things are really bad right now. Destination America. Dave Meltzer was quoted this week in the Observer newsletter as saying the honeymoon is over. They've already kind of given up on TNA. They really were just bringing them in as an experiment. TNA very much, relying on Destination America. That was really the only place they could go at that point. The thing is, too, that they draw the highest rating on Destination America in the history of Destination America. The problem being that everything in television is about ad rates. And they can't get ad rates for TNA Wrestling. And if you've ever watched TNA Wrestling, just check out some of those commercials. There was a report going around that Destination America had kind of taken control of creative. And the show has been much better. So if only USA would take control of WWE.
That would actually, I would welcome that. I think that would be a good alternative.
Destination America takes over, all of a sudden it's these awesome Bobby Lashley versus Kurt Angle main events for the world title and stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's sad, when I look back at TNA, because when I think of some of my favorite matches of the past, 10 years or whatever, a lot of them are the heyday when it was AJ and Daniels and Joe in various combinations in the main events. And I don't think you can get better than that, except for a lot of the New Japan stuff these days. So it's sad to see the state of what it's fallen to. You're right. There were times when we were fans. There was times when I watched more TNA than I did WWE. And that's not the case anymore, unfortunately.
One of the best live events we've ever been to.
Oh, God.
A house show.
The best. Just for star power and for what they put on, it was fantastic. I loved it.
Are you a Josh Matthews guy?
Not really. I think he's a bit of a douchebag.
Or does he look like Jonathan Taylor Thomas to you? And that's enough reason for you to hate him.
That is enough.
Now, shall we end the show on a positive note? I know there's lots to talk about. I reviewed the show on the weekend, Invasion Attack. But I know that you've also watched the show, and I would love to hear your opinion on some of these matches. Now, there are 3 matches in particular that I thought really, really carried this show. But I know that you watched more than that. So the pay-per-view debut of a new tag team called Roppongi Vice. Is that not the most fun name to say?
It really is. And I love the Bucks. I mean, those guys are so exciting to watch and so fun to watch, and they've really come into their own, as part of the Bullet Club. Very interesting, in-ring, innovative in-ring guys. I never would have thought it, when I saw them a few years ago, but they've really become such strong performers now. And Roppongi Vice is hilarious. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's a fun name to say. It's exciting. It's catchy. I like it.
A very different match from your typical Young Bucks match. A lot more comedy than you would see, and it really worked.
Oh, yeah. Look, they're hilarious. There was comedy, but there were so many great spots thrown into it, too. And they were in against a team that was doing a lot of kind of great spots as well. So it became such an exciting, fun match. And the comedy didn't take it down, I don't think.
They brought Trent in after Alex Kozlov retired from the business. Kozlov is gone. Forever Hooligans are no longer. And I didn't fully understand the gimmick at first. I thought this is a bit of an odd pairing. But I guess they're sort of doing the, odd squad sort of thing. Beretta being the square white guy that wears the lime green headband. And Rocky Romero being kind of like sort of a rough and tough. That's a guy to me. He's been around forever. Rocky Romero has been in New Japan even since 2002. WWE has been looking forever, since Eddie died, for the next Eddie Guerrero. Rocky Romero is the next Eddie Guerrero. The problem is he's already like 40 years old.
Yeah.
Because he's got the technique, the wrestling ability. He can do the high flying, but then he's got that entertainment gene. He's got the personality. He can make you laugh while you're watching a kick-ass match. And I really enjoyed this. I did not expect that Roppongi would come in and take the belts, but they did. So, really did enjoy this match. A lot of different cool sequences. I love that they found all these different ways now to set up the Meltzer driver.
Yeah. Oh, and it's such an exciting move to watch too. I get all freaked out whenever I see it.
Now, did you happen to see the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match? Kenny Omega taking on CMLL import, now with New Japan for the next year, Mascara Dorada. Did you see this match?
I did. It was exciting. It was so much fun. The funny thing with Kenny Omega is that I'm a huge fan of what he does in the ring. He's such an exciting guy and so innovative. I really like the moves that he puts together, but his hair makes me furious every time I see it. He looks like the guy from The Hobbit that wore the hat that had the birds living underneath his hat, and whenever he took his hat off, he had crap all over his hair. That's what he reminds me of. But I still love the guy, and I thought that match was amazing. I thought that I saw some things in that match that I was not expecting and that I'm not sure that I've seen before.
For instance, the Hurricane Rana from inside the ring, running over the top rope to Kenny on the apron to the outside.
Yeah.
And Kenny had sort of said publicly that was his first time ever working with a luchador. So the junior division's been suffering for a while now, mostly because of the fact that they had Taguchi as the champion. Now that Taguchi's out of the way, now that Kenny's the man, there's a whole bunch of fresh matches. But you're right. I mean, Kenny's just got that heel gene. We talked about the comedy entertainment gene with Rocky Romero. Kenny's got that heat gene, which is something that moving forward with the booking, I'm a little bit intrigued by, but it is Japan. And we'll talk about the main event here in a few minutes because obviously this was not the last time we saw Kenny Omega on Invasion Attack 2015. Really interesting, and this is a definite New Japan Gato booking trademark. This was not Nakamura's pay-per-view. And this was Nakamura's show just to be setting up his next big challenge, that of course being with Goto, which will be at the next pay-per-view. But this was not his pay-per-view to have his big Intercontinental title match and have some kind of a feud blow-off or anything like that. Who was even in this match? Nakamura, Ishii, and Yoshihashi versus Goto, Makabe, and who was in the third person? And Naito, yes, of course. So a really good six-man.
It was a really good six-man. And, the shows tend to get a little inundated with six-man and eight-man matches, but this one was really, really special. Honestly, anytime that they put Makabe and Ishii in the same ring, it's kind of like Godzilla versus King Kong. They just have this crazy chemistry where you feel like it's like a superhero match, or Jason versus Freddy. There's just this kind of insane two powerhouses going at each other, two guys that feel no pain, super hardcore wrestlers. So I loved that part of it. I thought Nakamura was amazing as well, but I thought the whole match was smooth and fluid.
Setting up Goto versus Nakamura too, that should be definitely another strong style classic.
Oh yeah.
They almost look like a tag team though, don't they?
They do. Yeah, I was thinking that when I was watching it. Yeah.
Okay, before we get to the main event, and we didn't spend too much time on Sunday's show talking about this, we had been sort of giving a lot of press to the long storyline that's been going on with Okada taking on Bad Luck Fale, and the fact that after Wrestle Kingdom, Okada had been going through a depression, and he was going through a losing streak against Bad Luck Fale, taking 3 powerbombs 3 different times, being pinned 1, 2, 3, and a really interesting story development on this show. The fact that Okada comes out there, he's just usual cool, calm, collected Okada, the bell rings and he snaps.
He was outstanding. I mean, I love Okada anyway, but it was kind of such a great fresh twist for that character.
He beat the shit out of Fale for that first half of the match.
He did. And it was exciting, and it was a rejuvenation, like a rebirth. I mean, Fale got a nice little push out of this. I think that having him go over Okada so many times really did a lot for his stock. So I think he could afford to get pounded on. But Okada, it was a rebirth and a repackaging of that character and a nice little tweak to him, which I think is going to benefit him going forward.
The way that they book, like a Fale even, he's not ever going to be your top guy. He shouldn't even be in the top mix. But these wins that he's had over top guys make it so that when he's in there in a match, you can't rule out the fact that he could win at any moment. And that's the beauty of it. They've done that with Naito. They've done that with a whole bunch of guys where it's like they don't win that much. That probably not going to win, but you can't rule it out.
Absolutely. And it's the beauty, and that's the thing that WWE just doesn't do enough of, is putting enough guys in there that could win the title on any given night. You have a bunch of guys that are your very, very top guys, but the guys below that, they tend to devalue to a little bit and relegate them to a lower part on the card. The beauty of what New Japan's done is giving you some credible guys with credible victories over top competitors, that if you're watching these guys at a house show or you're watching these guys on one specific sort of random event, there's a really good chance they actually might win the match. And I think that's the magic that you need to keep alive to make these kind of shows work.
So let's talk about the main event. The New Japan Cup, they built up Kota Ibushi as the next challenger for the title. There was the big drama where he came into the ring at the end of his match against Goto when he won in the finals, and they asked him, who will you challenge? Because you have a choice between the World IWGP Champion, AJ Styles, the IWGP Intercontinental Champion, Shinsuke Nakamura, or the never openweight champion, Tomohiro Ishii. He rules out Nakamura. He says he's had enough of him, and he hasn't had good luck against him, so he doesn't want to challenge him again. So they knocked that out of the choices. Is it going to be Ishii, or is it going to be AJ? And of course, we don't understand a word of Japanese, but we definitely understand when he says the two letters AJ, and the crowd goes nuts. So from that moment, I'm thinking, this is a dream match. Ever since I've even known of Kota Ibushi's existence, I have fantasized in my mind about a match with AJ Styles. I did not think it would be the main event of a pay-per-view, one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year. There was a lot of speculation, not from the company, but from the fans of New Japan, that Kota Ibushi was not going to be a big enough star, because again, he's a guy that's on the rise. He kind of has that strike against him that in WWE the guys have where, yeah, Daniel Bryan, you could be money, but these guys are money. So there was a lot of fans that thought Sumo Hall, AJ Styles, main event, Kota Ibushi, that's probably not going to draw very well. He's not a big enough star. What happens? They draw bigger than they've drawn in ages in Sumo Hall. They sell it out. Kota Ibushi has become a huge draw in New Japan, particularly with the young teenage female demographic. So Kota Ibushi is becoming a huge star and a huge draw in New Japan, Shane. Does this surprise you at all?
Not at all. I mean, the guy's fantastic. He's exciting. He's got a great look. And yes, it was a dream match. And yes, I was super excited going in. And I don't think that match disappointed at any level. Even although I think my expectations might have been a bit ridiculous, they lived up to them, which was such a nice twist.
Absolutely. So going into this match, too, they'd already had a match earlier in the show where it was Bullet Club members Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows taking on the Kingdom of Ring of Honor, Matt Taven and Michael Bennett with Maria in their corner. And not only did the Bullet Club members lose the IWGP Heavyweight Championship titles, but they were having problems. And these guys are supposed to be like brothers, and for the very first time, we're starting to see these cracks in the foundation of the Bullet Club. It's been a real different vibe lately for the Bullet Club matches. Usually they have all members on the outside, all kinds of interference, to the point where it just gets ridiculous. And lately it's been like one guy comes down to the ring for each match, and it could be a random guy for this particular match. And from the second I saw it, the red flag was going. Kenny Omega coming down to ringside with AJ Styles as his second. And for those that don't know, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi are the Japanese equivalent, because Kenny, although from Winnipeg, Kenny's a Japanese guy. He speaks fluid Japanese. The Japanese relate to him. A lot of the time before he came back in the Bullet Club role that he's in now, he was always cutting his promos in Japanese. Him and Kota Ibushi are legitimate best friends, the closest of friends. And to the Japanese audience, it would be like the British Bulldogs. So the fans really relate to the fact that these two are best buddies and were tag team champions in DDT. They've had many matches in DDT. They've even been IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champions in New Japan many years ago. So they really relate to the fact that these two are friends, and now, for the very first time, they're kind of being put in conflict here. Regarding the match, obviously there's all kinds of great stuff that happened in this match. My favorite being the whole trade-off of strike sequences.
Oh yeah, and the Pele kicks and all that. It was just amazing. It was such a great balance. I mean, you don't get a magical kind of matchup like that where you have two guys that are not the same style but complementary styles, but where they're perfectly balanced against each other and they can just kind of go. There were so many sequences in that where I was kind of had my mouth hanging open. The thing about bringing Kenny in, I hope it doesn't mean they're going to blow off the AJ. They're not going to give him a full feud with AJ. I hope they do, because I want to see more of that. Yeah, and the finish was outstanding. The whole finishing sequence. It was one of those things where could have gone terribly wrong and been an awful spot if they hadn't had two consummate professionals at the top of their games pulling it off.
Would you put that as a 10 on the difficulty scale for a finish?
Yeah.
Kota Ibushi's finish is the Phoenix Splash, which many people will know from the Royal Rumble match this year with Seth Rollins. Although I always say, if you've not seen Kota Ibushi do the move, you've never seen the Phoenix Splash. Nobody does it like Kota. And so he's going for the move, but before he goes for it, he's standing on the top rope, and Kenny Omega just stands on the apron. He doesn't interfere. He doesn't knock him off. He doesn't try to hit him. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't even talk trash to him. He just stands on the apron with this very somber kind of look on his face, And Kota just looks at him long enough to be like, just long enough. Not like the WWE thing where you get blinded by the shiny light and you forget that you're in a match. Like anyone really would in a real contest if you're on the top rope about to do a move and your buddy who you have this history with is standing on the apron. Just long enough. And he looks at him. He doesn't try to jump at him. He doesn't try to hit him. Kenny doesn't try to interfere. And then he goes and he does the move, although doesn't completely turn with the final rotation of the Phoenix Splash because he is caught by AJ Styles, who is standing. Gets him, locks him in the Styles Clash 1, 2, 3. AJ retains the IWGP Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, like I said, if that had been off by a little bit, it would have looked silly. Would have kind of wrecked the finish, but it was amazing. It was incredible, and it was a nice end to a really great show.
Yeah, and Kota is absolutely fearless. He's one of those guys you really do have to savor every moment with him right now in his prime, because guys like him, they don't last forever. So you are seeing something really special every time you see him step in the ring. But in terms of the angle that seems to be playing out of this, after the match, AJ is celebrating. The Bullet Club does their usual thing. They come down, celebrate. But Kenny is clearly, his head's not in it. He's not in a celebratory mood. You can tell just in his facials. Kenny, not the greatest talker in English, but definitely able to convey his emotions with his face. And I thought he did a really good job of being the conflicted best friend who just kind of watched his buddy get beat up. You know what I mean? And now you're leaving with your new friends, but you're kind of feeling bad for your buddy that just got beat up. Where it's going, I would assume it's a long-term angle because that's what New Japan does. And that's why people love this product so much. It's not just the wrestling. It's the fact that there's a man in control who has the pencil, who has a long-term vision. I bet this whole thing is booked out for a year.
I would hope so, because they've got the potential there to do something really special with it.
Your gut instinct, though, just from seeing that and that post-match thing, where do you feel like, is it going to go to a point where Kenny has to stand up for his buddy? I would like to see the feud continue, like you say.
Yeah, I would like to see AJ and Kota do a few more matches before they play out this thing with Kenny. It would be nice to see Kenny and Kota maybe working as a team again. But any way it goes, I don't think that there's going to be a loser in that match or in that situation, because the talent is so high. It's going to be exciting to watch no matter what they do. But please more AJ and Kota. If not right away, then at least sometime in the near future.
Definitely feel like Kenny and Kota will end up on the same side at some point, and that the Bullet Club is slowly but surely. I feel like they've already booked this next year as sort of the last year of the Bullet Club, and I feel like this is the beginning of that, if not just maybe a way of shuffling the deck a little bit, getting some different people in there. I wouldn't even be surprised if Kota and Kenny have a few matches, if that's sort of the immediate program right now, and that is good for everybody. An awesome finish. Okada coming out, obviously he's the next challenger. He's going to be going at AJ again. He is the man who lost the title to AJ in AJ's very first New Japan match coming in with the Bullet Club. AJ came in and defeated Okada, so there's lots of unfinished business there. Always great matches. But anyways, before we get out of here, folks, for everybody in the Philadelphia area and the Toronto area, obviously War of the Worlds and Global Wars, New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor, the two greatest, Shan said it earlier in the show, the two greatest in-ring products in the entire world collide for 4 very special shows, 2 in Philadelphia, the 15th and the 16th here in Toronto at the Ted Reeves Arena. Shan, have you been impressed so far with the announcements regarding the Japanese talent that will be coming in? I would assume the answer is yeah.
There's nobody really that hasn't been announced yet that I'm waiting for. I mean, it just seems to get better and better. All the guys I was really excited about are there, and I'm assuming with a month to go that there's going to be even some more big surprises, maybe even some unannounced surprises. So I don't think there's any way we can lose at this. I'm so excited to see these guys up close, particularly as you know, I'm a huge Nakamura fan. So being able to see Nakamura and the potential to maybe we are pretty close to the ring, maybe some form of interaction. I'm really pumped for it.
And let's clarify this: Ring of Honor, like we said, are some real tight asses. They would not give us any tickets. These were tickets paid for with Japanese yen from New Japan Pro Wrestling, comp to us at Wrestling Audio Revolution. So we thank them very much for that. Origato. But yeah, I mean, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kazuchika Okada, Shinsuke Nakamura, that's the 3 top names in New Japan. Then you put in Naito, who a lot of people always have to put in that top mix of the best guys in the entire industry. You know, you wouldn't call him number 1, but you would definitely put him in that top 5. You're going to have the legend. Jushin Thunder Liger will be on these shows. We're really quite lucky because Joe Koff is the COO of ROH. And Joe Koff looked at last year's War of the Worlds and last year's Global Wars, and he thought, we only basically broke even for these shows. We really didn't make any money for this. Joe Koff felt like 3 Japanese guys is enough for this show. And thank God, Delirious, who is the booker of Ring of Honor, has been now for quite some time, is a huge New Japan fan and really pushed hard to get 8 guys just like last year to come this year. So this is really special.
Today they just announced the Bullet Club as well. So, I mean, the problem is not going to be, getting something good out of this show. It's going to be kind of keeping up with everything they're giving us, because there's going to be so much. I think it's going to be really over the top. I'm really excited.
We'll have to get Ernest Matthews on the show and talking about his experience at Global Wars. We will be there for night 2. If you see us down there, come on over, say hello. Everybody knows what we look like, right?
I think so. Most people own our action figures anyway, so, I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any problem there.
No announcement of any matches yet, but we'll keep everybody informed. So from myself, from Shotgun Shan, anything you'd like to say here in closing, my man?
My friend, just that it seems to be getting better and better. And again, I think that this New Japan show is coming at just the right time. We're a little bit lagged back after the WrestleMania fallout, and maybe not convinced that the product's going to be that much better. So this has been a great boost, I think, for my morale.
All right, well, we'll talk to you next week. Have a great weekend. From myself, from Shotgun Sham, I want to say peace, love, wrestling audio revolution, and
promotional consideration is paid for by the following.
Ooh, yeah.
Playing in a club in Roppongi, drinking all my troubles away, playing every song on the jukebox, 'cause that's what the people want me to play. Watching all the ladies go dancing, see the gold rings on their hands. While they're dancing, they are really romancing, 'cause they wanna be with their man. Smoking American cigarettes,